Chapter 13. It had been more than a kiss. Fleur had sensed that immediately. It had felt like home, or at least how home used to feel when May had been alive and Henry had been a happier man. Back then, the house had been a vessel for love, laughter, and hugs. Now it felt like a repository for disliked silence and awkward meals of polite conversation at best. Even the two women who worked for Irma rarely cracked smiles. They barely spoke unless answering question fired at them by the lady of the house. But kissing Tom changed everything. It prompted all her pleasurable memories at once, wrapping them into a neat, tender feeling of joy, allowing her to glimpse all that she missed about her childhood. He suddenly felt like her safe harbour away from the rocks of misery or the currents of despair. With his strong arms encircling her, and the way he looked at her with what seemed like awe or disbelief, she loved knowing that he couldn't hide his own pleasure at being with the grown-up Fleur. He had certainly grown into a fine-looking man, but more importantly, Fleur could tell he was the best sort of man, someone to rely on, who would be the closest of friends, the gentlest of lovers. She had desired all of this as they kissed. It felt like their lips had wanted to touch again for for all these years, and now that they had, she wanted them to touch forever. She hadn't wanted to let him go after their final kiss, and when she finally did, it had led to a lovely moment of embarrassed laughter between them. "I don't want to leave you again. Not ever, Fleur," he told her, and she loved how vulnerable he could be in his honesty. He was stroking back a wisp of hair that had come free. She cupped his jawline in her hands, strong, with just the first rasp of evening stubble against her skin. "Then don't, Tom, catch love," she whispered back, kissing him again and smiling at the sound of a distant wolf whistle coming from across the wild road. Someone had noticed them, maybe envied them. They pulled away. "I have to go, though," he said. "Tomorrow feels like a lifetime to wait." She grinned in the dark. "I might be able to get one of the boys to drive us up to the city. I'll meet you outside the pub at 10. It would take several strong blokes to stop me," he assured. Tom kissed her hand softly. "Tomorrow, then." "No church this morning, Dad?" Fleur inquired brightly at breakfast. Henry frowned. "No, I didn't wake you because I have a call out. Old Mrs. Jones." "Oh," she said sadly. All of her father's peers were dying. He was ailing, though. He nodded. "I'll go shortly." Fleur watched again as Irma joined Nan at the sideboard, where she now preferred breakfast to be laid out so that the family could help themselves. It was beyond pretentious, and given that all they were eating this morning was porridge, it seemed a waste of time, effort, and washing up. Her stepmother's latest decision, though, was to insist on pouring Henry's coffee for herself, and she seemed to take an age over it. "It is my pleasure to look after my husband in this way," she insisted to Nan, who offered to pour. Irma's voice grated. To Fleur it sounded insincere with its high-pitched, nasal tone that she managed to achieve without really trying. You can clear the table instead." Irma kept her back to Henry and Fleur, finally returning to the table with two streaming cups. "You can fetch your own, can't you, dear?" Irma said lightly to Fleur. The arrangement of the words probably sounded carrying to her father, but all Fleur heard was Irma's careless attitude towards her. "Of course," Fleur frowned. "I thought you preferred tea in the morning, Dad." He flicked the newspaper. "I do, but Irma believes the tea is giving me indigestion." "Nonsense, you drank it all your life," Fleur said, giving Irma a perplexed stare. Her father was not giving any eye contact, apparently more interested in his morning news. Irma returned Fleur's stare with a mind your own business glare. "Well, I spoke to my doctor, and he said we should eliminate certain things one by one. We've begun with tea, but your doctor doesn't have my father's history, does he?" Fleur countered. "You came home late." Irma changed the subject, but dismissive as ever, faking a smile. "I presume your evening went well." "It did." Fleur allowed her question to be set aside, giving an overly sugary smile to her stepmother. Irma looked vaguely surprised and even smacked at her husband's newspaper. "Henry, dear, please pay attention. This is about Fleur and her engagement." Fleur tried not to bristle at Irma's rudeness, and instead decided to use it to advantage as her father reluctantly folded up his newspaper and sipped his coffee. She watched him make a face as he tasted it. "So, last night. Is that what I've been interrupted for?" Irma gave him a warning glare. "Tell us about it, Fleur, dear." Oh, she could be so phony. It made Fleur want to shake her father. Instead, she smiled. "I did have one lovely dance in the arms of a man I haven't seen since he was a boy." Irma's expression dissolved into confusion. What do you mean? Dad, Fleur said, ignoring Irma's question and touching his arm. Do you remember the funeral we prepared for the Darnell family in the city many years ago? Henry frowned, and then the skin on his creased forehead slackened. I do. Mother and newborn had died. The other child's son accompanied them. Fleur grinned. Nothing wrong with your long-term memory. That's spot on. The little boy's name, you may recall, was Tom Catchlove. I met him last night by chance at the Palais. Her father gave a sound of surprise. Oh, yes, I do recall. And this is the fellow you danced with. It is. What about James? Irma demanded. Fleur turned to her. Jimmy couldn't care any less, actually. He was quite unpleasant to be around. Who wouldn't be if his date was whisked away by another man? He was rude, Irma, and he had nothing to say to me or I to him. And I suppose this Tom chap has plenty to say for himself. We seem to have a lot to say to each other, if I'm truthful. I'm glad, Fleur, her father said, wincing as he finished his coffee. It's nice to see you so bright. Henry, Irma was able to conceal her frustration. Your daughter was meant to be stepping out with James Copeland. He's going to be her fiancé. He most certainly is not, Fleur replied firmly. I agreed to go to the Palais with Jimmy to keep the peace in this house. But what I've proved to him and to myself is that we have nothing in common and nothing that we admire about each other. That's because you're high and mighty, Fleur Appleby. Now, Irma, her father tried to soothe her. Stay out of this, Henry. You've done enough damage. Fleur could feel herself turning slank-eyed. You're the one doing damage, Irma. She just stopped herself from adding, and I just have to work out how. Instead, she cleared her throat. I'm going out with Tom today, as a matter of fact, and I'm going to ask him to join us for an evening meal on Tuesday. Please, can we have anything but roast mutton? I'm sure he's had enough of that in his life. You're what? You heard me, Irma. I have as much right to invite guests as you do. If you don't wish to join us, feel free to remain absent from the dinner. I don't want anything special laid out for Tom. I'd simply like him to meet Dad again. And how long is the new friend here for? Irma said, sounding scornful. Fleur shrugged. I'm not his keeper. He's working at the wool store and staying at the Aberton Hotel until he can find some proper lodgings. Her father placed his hands on either side of the empty porridge bowl as though he was ready to flee the conversation. He's most welcome around our table, Fleur. Tuesday, you say? She nodded, ignoring the look of hatred Irma gave her. Good, that's settled, Irma. We shall do a roast chicken. Tell the lad 5 o'clock, Fleur. Henry pulled out his fob wash and flipped it open. Right. I can't be late for the James family. I'll take care of Mrs. Chambers before I go. Dad, would it be all right if Robbie drives us to the city, please? It will take hours on Sunday to get there by bus. And where, pray tell, is he taking you? Irma demanded. To the zoo, Irma. And before you sneer, it was my choice. Her stepmother made a face anyway. Not very romantic. It's not meant to be. It's a day, and that's a beautiful. What a beautiful day it is. Fleur said, unable to hide her pleasure, knowing she would be with Tom in a few hours. She stood. Thank you for your breakfast, Irma. Henry stood to, giving Irma a perfunctory peck on the cheek. Yes, thank you for that, my love. I hope your day is splendid with your new young man. I'm looking forward to meeting him again. Fleur revelled in the twisted expression on her stepmother's face and knew she would probably have to pay dearly for her revelation of this morning. At the Royal Zoological Garden in Adelaide's Frome Street, Fleur queued with Tom alongside a horde of other sightseers and pleasure seekers dressed up in their best for a day out. It's busy, Tom remarked, looking around wide-eyed. It's Sunday and it's sunny, Fleur said. I'm actually surprised there aren't more people. She stood on tippy-toe to sneak a view of the turnstile. We're finally moving, she confirmed. You look beautiful, he said. She smiled. So you've told me. Well, all the colour really suits you. Fleur smoothed the floral flock made of what the lady at Foy and Gibson had described as novelty crinkle crepe with a riot of tiny flowers in mirrored colours against a cream backdrop. All these new fabrics, dear, she said. Hard to keep up with them, but you do look most delightful in it. Fits as though it was tailored for you. Fleur had demurred, needing to be convinced. I must admit that I prefer the drop waist or looser fitting of a few years ago. My dear, the waist is back and your neat figure and slender looks couldn't suit it more if you tried. Fleur had glanced again in the mirror, not wanting to like it, but aware of how attractive the dress looked on her. It cinched at the waist, but had a loosely frilled neckline that was echoed by a slightly fluted hemline not too far from her ankles. The sleeves were 3/4 length, and while it was a modest dress, it was helplessly pretty. I'm not used to being this colourful. I'm always in my dark formal outfit for work, Fleur told Tom, coming out of her recollections of buying the dress several months ago when summer was still in full roar. But I'm glad I wore flat shoes. I didn't want to walk until my feet ache, and I see every creature in the zoo. He grinned. Come on. He clasped her hand in his rough one, and it felt warm and safe as they shuffled towards the turnstile. Finally, it was their turn, and Tom quietly paid a shilling for both of them. He was so different to Jimmy, not needing to be showy. The middle bars twisted with a creak to let them through, and the man at the gate offered some tips as he handed back the entrance tickets. I'm sure you'll find your way around them, but most people want to see a newsboy. So if you follow the path to the left, you'll pass the wallabies first before you round a bend, and newsboy is on your left. Opposite him are the alligators, and then you can walk on that same path towards Lillian, although she gives rides today. He smiled at them. And the monkeys, Fleur asked, helplessly excited. As if that hurt her, a sudden cattle roar began, and everyone queuing behind them laughed. Follow the noise, the ticket seller suggested, joining the laughter. They're just warming up. The monkeys' enclosure is right in the middle. All paths lead into the center, so you can do a big circle and then take any one of the path to the monkey house and the kiosk if you feel like some refreshments. Fleur and Tom thanked the man and moved together into the zoo, where it felt suddenly cool for all the greenery that lined the pathway. So why is everyone so excited about Newsboy? Tom asked, a light-hearted tone of bewilderment in his voice. Tom, you don't know about Newsboy? She said incredulously, watching him shake his head without shame. Well, there is a story to it. Our hippo called Daniel sadly died after someone threw a ball into his enclosure and he swallowed it. It created a big stir, and South Australians were collectively devastated. Anyway, a couple of years ago, our afternoon paper on the news, she paused and he nodded to show he knew what she was referring to. So Fleur continued, it made a public appeal asking for donations for our zoo to have a new hippo. The newspaper kept the promotion going so long that we agreed to name the hippo what it wanted. She gave an inquiring smile. Newsboy, Tom said on cue. Exactly. So Newsboy eventually arrived from Auckland Zoo in 1934, courtesy of the big effort from so many people in this state, including schools and firms. It was brilliant, really. Applebee's donated twice. There was a huge celebration when we got here, and the enclosure was covered in a special wire mesh to prevent anything being thrown in there. I'm impressed you know so much. I'm a member of the South Australian Zoological and Acclimatation Society. He smiled. That's a mouthful. She gave a shrug. I do love animals and the dead. Fleur smiled in agreement. Neither bring anything but privilege into my life. How do you feel about those amazing creatures from all over the world being caged like they are? You don't think they should be left to roam free? Not in Adelaide, no, she said dryly, but quickly addressed the gravity of his question. Tom agreed this isn't ideal to have a city growing up around a compound of caged creatures, but it's their very exoticness that makes them special for city folk to see. He shrugged, clearly opposed to it. It's a tricky one. I'm as thrilled as the next person to see a lion or a polar bear, but it's not natural, is it? Neither are sheep in Australia, but the First Fleet didn't seem to care about them not belonging. Fair enough, but the sheep clothe us, feed us, make money for us. These animals are for our entertainment, and that feels cruel. Fleur nodded. They are, but a lot of good research is done at this zoo, which they exchange with others around the world. Imagine, for instance, a world without lions or giraffes or monkeys. I've never seen any, but you want to? I do. So I'm a hypocrite, I suppose. Not at all. You work with animals, you take care of them. That's what every zookeeper will say to you here, that they put animal first. I'd rather be one of the people that campaigns for better facilities, more research, more suitable conditions. The zoo is an educational establishment as much as a pleasure park. All these people today will hopefully leave with a fresh appreciation for the creatures of the world, so when donations are needed, or campaigns for new enclosures are launched, they'll support them. She raised her hand anyway. Enough philosophy. Let's enjoy looking at these beautiful creatures. She knew Tom was about to agree when he halted, staring in wonder as an enormous grey-brown animal emerged from a hut inside the enclosure to the left. Children began to wave and call out his name as the crowd, including Tom and Fleur, hurried forward. A keeper dressed in sandy-coloured shorts and a matching shirt lifted a pail of water from the pool that Newsboy was wading through and poured it over the head of the giant, almost prehistoric looking animal. To shrieks of delight from the onlookers, Newsboy opened his jaws wide and the water tumbled into his gaping cavernous mouth. Tusk-like teeth stood like sentinels at each side of his large pink tongue. Tom laughed. He's brilliant. Do you know what the word hippopotamus means? Oh, Tom, are you going to impress me? He laughed again. Perhaps. Well, I don't know. It's such a strange word. It's ancient Greek. I'm sure you can guess that much. She stared back at him, loving him even more for being interesting, for knowing something she didn't, and for not being boorish or boastful about it. All right, but what does it mean? It means river horse. Ah, she sighed, full of wonder. I like that. What else do you know about hippos? You should never get between our mother hippo and her calf. Mothers have been known to kill lions, crush crocodiles, and bite them in half if her baby is threatened. I knew I liked them for a reason, she chuckled. Most mothers feel the same way about their young. Tom grinned. You're going to make a great mother. He kissed the top of her head fondly, and Fleur, who never allowed herself to dream about motherhood because she had not met the right person, felt the rush of a strange new pleasure at the mention of it, the joy of that thought to be mother, how extraordinary and wonderful at once. The sound of complaining metal announced the arrival of the miniature train, whose diesel engine had been designed and built by the zoo's staff. It eased around the corner, passing them to deposit another pile of families excited to see a newsboy. We'd better let others get to the front, Fleur suggested, breaking out of her happy thoughts, and then moved on. We've got 2 aging lions remaining, and some tigers here too. 2 parents and 3 cubs, all grown up though. Is that the giraffe house? Tom pointed, laughing at the height of the enclosure they were approaching. No giraffes at the moment, sadly. Our last one died a few years ago, and before you ask, we don't have any rhinos. But we want one. I imagine it's a case of remaining patient. We do have 2 female polar bears and some sun bears though. They walked around the full circumference of the zoo, holding hands, smiling affectionately at excited children and being amazed by everything, from the incredible pink of the flamingo to the shagginess of the new llama baby. The day was neither warm nor cold, but it wasn't windy either, so Fleur was happy she hadn't saddled herself with a coat to the ground. Besides, she was sure if she felt suddenly chilled, Tom wouldn't think twice about taking off his jacket and placing it around her shoulders. The more time she spent with Tom, the more Fleur began to enjoy the comfortable silence between them, and how unaware he was of all the woman's glances that slided his way and lingered. She allowed herself to privately enjoy the envy. Last night you promised to tell me about your ambitions, Fleur. I'm keen to hear them. I've not spoken this aloud, other than alluding you to it with Dad, but it seems easy to say to you. She smiled. I want to open the first all-female undertaking business in Australia. As they continued walking, enjoying the sunshine and pleasant noise of the crowd, she explained her rationale in a similar way to how she had presented it to her father, but giving Tom plenty more detail because he seemed keen to hear it all. Tom finally gave a small whoop of pleasure when she shrugged as they walked, suggesting that was it. He heard all her plans. That's really clever, Fleur. I'm glad you think so. I'm sure to hear why, though. He seemed to sense that this was a test, as though she wanted to be sure he was not just paying her lip service. I suppose when the time comes, I'd rather have someone like you preparing me and my loved ones than someone like Jimmy Coughlin. You care. It sounds as though he cares more about that income and profit, but perhaps just more objectively, your idea is unique. Anything with a fresh approach to how we have always done things is going to win attention. I could apply the thinking to sheep shearing and tool classing, and even he paused for a moment, thinking of example. Well, those new electric buses. Who would have thought that 20 years ago would have those carrying people to and fro? I imagine you have new techniques, new ways of doing things in your business from time to time. We do regularly. He grinned. But this is a big leap, I imagine. Right now, it's likely. If you may think what you're suggesting is a great idea because it's so radical and it probably feels threatening too. You're going to really shake up the industry. A lot of the undertakers in the state and everywhere else belongs to the Freemasons. The funeral business, like the lodge, is a male-only domain, an industry that is increasingly worth a fortune, I might add. I pay attention to news both here and internationally. I watch what's going on in our industry, and Tom, the Americans are eyeing off Australia. The industry is massive. You think there would be more than enough business to go around, but I can feel their collective eyes on our nation, and I sense they think we're ripe for the picking. My father doesn't share my sentiment, but he's older, set in his ways. He believes in doing things the old-fashioned way, but the very history he's come from proves that generations don't sit still. They change with the times. He changed his father's business, and somewhere along the line he'd forgotten that. I'm the next generation, I can bring the change. But those men who dominate the funeral business sit around in their meetings and plot ways to keep it wholly male owned. I know they've criticised my father down the years for involving his daughter, but there wasn't much they could do because Dale was one of the first in the state and certainly the first in his region to offer a proper undertaking service. They'll be overrun by the big American companies who will gobble them up. Not you, though, Fleur. I can see the local folks who enjoyed you striking out in this way. I'll probably receive threats, she suggested. I'll protect you. Let's squeeze his arm. You you were sweet at 10 Tom, and you haven't changed despite all that's happened. She paused, walking as if by a suit. Their gaze locked, and she felt as though a current had been encircling them. It had begun with the slow revolutions drawing them towards one another, first relying on their childhood familiarity, but increasingly over the journey of the past hour it began to travel faster, bringing them so much closer as they shared the innermost thoughts and feelings. Now I felt like an invisible rope between them. It had connected them 2 decades ago, but now was now finally secured around them with a firm knot of secret and emotion. By the time they made it back to the gates, she was ready for a break. Shall we have a pot of tea? She asked, checking her wristwatch. It's past 11. Great idea, he said, and led them down the nearest pathway that would take them into the deepest part of the zoo. I know you want to see the monkeys, so let's save them to last. If we wait until noon, all the children will need feeding, and I imagine picnics will be laid out, so it will be quieter at the enclosure. She tapped her nose. Smart move, Mr. Ketchup. Tea and cake then. Thank you for listening.